Descriptive research. Descriptive research is designed to document the factors that describe characteristics, behaviors, and conditions of individuals and groups. Descriptive studies document the nature of existing phenomena and describe how variables change over time. They will generally be structured around a set of guiding questions or research objectives to generate data or characterize a situation of interest. This slide illustrates the basic differences between quantitative and qualitative research designs. Reflect on the words listed on the slide and contrast the two designs. Developmental research involves the description of developmental change and the sequencing of behaviors in people over time. Developmental studies have contributed to the theoretical foundations of clinical practice in many ways. Longitudinal studies may focus on the natural history of disease states. This type of information is important in the future design of clinical trials and the generation of hypotheses about the etiology and progression of disease. The purpose of normative research is to describe typical or standard values for characteristics of a given population. Normative studies are often directed toward a specific age group, gender, occupation, culture, or disability. Example: children normally begin to walk at the age of 1 year old. Next, we have qualitative research. The essence of the qualitative method obliges the researcher to understand the person's perspective first. Quantitative methodology is linked to the philosophy of logical positivism, in which human experience is assumed to be limited to logical and controlled relationships between specific measurable variables. Qualitative research seeks to describe the complex nature of humans and how individuals perceive their own experiences within a specific social context. Qualitative methodology uses the subject's own words and narrative summaries of observable behavior to express data, rather than numerical data derived from predetermined rating systems. Phenomenology seeks to draw meaning from complex realities through careful analysis of first-person narrative. The researcher begins this type of inquiry by identifying the clinical phenomenon to be studied. Illness, physical disability, and childbirth are examples of phenomena that have been explored by health professionals. Ethnography is the study of attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors of a specific group of people within their own culture. In ethnographic studies, the researcher becomes immersed in the subject's way of life to understand the cultural forces that shape behavior and feelings. Grounded theory is a qualitative methodology that allows the researcher to develop theory to explain what is observed. As data is gathered and coded, each idea or theme is compared to others to determine where they agree or conflict. At any point in the study, if data do not support the theory, the data are not discarded, but the theory is refined so that it fits the existing data. That is, the theory must come from the data. Field observation of the phenomenon being studied is often conducted prior to interviews. The purpose of this observation is to identify people, interactions, the influence of socio-cultural context, and even artifacts that might be studied in depth to acquire relevant data to answer the research questions. As a non-participant in the activities being monitored, the researcher quietly and inconspicuously observes, then later records field notes. A researcher can also become embedded within the group, using the technique of participant observation. With this method, the researcher actually becomes a participant in the activities of the group being studied, so that observation of behaviors can be appreciated from the standpoint of those who are being observed. Interviews involve a form of direct contact between the researcher and the subjects within their natural environment. Interviews are used to gather information, with the researcher asking questions that probe the subject's perceptions and experiences. Interviews should be approached with a broadly structured script that will guide the discussion and provide a basis for comparing responses. However, they must also be flexible enough to allow the interviewer to probe and ask follow-up questions that are relevant to the specific individual's circumstance. Interviews can be conducted with one individual or with a group. Qualitative data analysis is primarily an inductive process, with a constant interplay between data that represent the reality of the study participants and theoretical conceptualization of that reality. Therefore, the process of analysis is ongoing as data are collected. Because observational and interview responses are recorded as narratives, qualitative data are typically voluminous. Data will usually be recorded through written memos or transcribed from audio or videotapes. The specific techniques of data analysis can vary from purely narrative descriptions of observations to creating a coding system from which categories can be developed, and in a systematic way. Patterns or themes develop from the mass of information. Reliability and validity are issues of concern in qualitative research, just as they are in all types of research. For qualitative study, the concept of measurement error must be examined in terms of judgments rather than numerical equivalency. Because the data sources are words rather than numbers, different terms and techniques are used to describe and determine the trustworthiness of the data. Credibility and truth refer to internal validity. Transferability refers to an external validity. Confirmability and dependability refer to reliability. Triangulation refers to a process whereby concepts are confirmed using more than one source of data, more than one data collection method, or more than one set of researchers. The validity of the findings can also be supported by a clear description and documentation of the thought process used to interpret data. This process is referred to as an audit trail, allowing those who read the research to follow the investigator's logic. This provides an opportunity for others to agree or disagree with conclusions and to reconstruct categorizations. Prolonged engagement occurs when the researcher spends enough time with the subject to feel confident that their responses are consistent. As a result, researchers often have more than one point of contact with their subjects for data collection activities. Other strategies for improving accuracy include the involvement of more than one investigator to confirm ideas, confirmation of conclusions with the subject of the study through member checks and analysis until data saturation is reached. This slide provides strategies to conduct simple, moderate, and complex searches. The top half of the slide describes the methodology, while the bottom half provides an example. Notice the notation about quantity and quality of articles typically retrieved. In lecture this week, you will compare and contrast quantitative and qualitative research. You will also discuss data collection activities as well as data analysis and how it differs from quantitative design. You will also appraise a descriptive study, so please prepare for this discussion.